Thanks, Ballant. 42nd Street is set to take the stage at the Peoria Players Theater, full of crowd-pleasing tap dances, popular musical theater standards, and show-stopping ensemble production numbers. Joining us are two of the cast members, Chip Joyce, who plays Julian Marsh, and Rachel Coker, who plays Peggy Sawyer. Thank you to you two for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, so I got a little tease in the breaks, but break it down for us and tell us what 42nd Street is about.
Okay. 42nd Street is set in the 1930s, and it is what's known as a backstage musical. It's a show within a show. So you're watching actors and a director, producers, trying to put a show together, and then you see the musical numbers that the audience would see. And then you go backstage and you see everything that's going on in between. I compared it actually a little bit to the Muppet Show.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds super cool. I think of it like a dream within a dream. So what was that experience like for you two? Because I feel like it's like you're playing the life you live in a way. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah, it's kind of fun because even how Dan set up the stage it's very similar to our theater. So when the cast is going down to costumes, they're actually going the way that we go to costumes, or off stage right or off stage left. It's very much set up like we're doing this show for real in our own real life at Peoria Players Theater, which it's kind of fun. It's very meta.
So let's talk about your characters, because you play Julian and you play Peggy. Who are they?
Julian Marsh is the director. He's a big Broadway impresario, a legendary Broadway director, and he's in need of a big Broadway hit to kind of give his career a boost again. And so that's what he's hoping. The name of the show that they're putting on in 42nd Street is called Pretty Lady. And so hopefully Pretty Lady is the musical that's the big hit. And Peggy Sawyer, played by Rachel, is one of the chorus girls in the show. Go ahead.
Yep, a small town girl, like moved to New York hoping for her star turn, shows up to this audition. She shows up late, but somehow stumbles her way into the show, and ultimately, without spoilers, ends up taking on a much bigger role than intended.
Speaking of spoilers, I'm going to put you in a hot seat and potentially ask for one. You two share dialogue in the show, right? Can we get maybe your favorite lines between you two, like a little snippet?
Me personally, I think it's hilarious. Julian Marsh seems to talk in third person a lot.
Oh, we love people like
he'll
that,
say
don't
things
we?
like, I'm Julian Marsh, and this is a Julian Marsh show, and nobody walks out of a Julian Marsh show. He's got a big ego.
I was going to say, you're giving away the personality of Julian for sure.
Now, to piggyback off of that, every line I say to him has his name in it. Mr. Marsh this, Mr. Marsh that, everything.
Isn't that fun? Do you ever wake up and say, Mr. Marsh? I'm like, what am I talking about?
I give a lot of big speeches, and then they always end with, what are we waiting around for? And the truth is, it's because I'm still talking is what we're waiting around for. So he's one of those kind of egomaniacs.
Oh my goodness, it sounds like quite the show. We have the information up, but can you say it verbally? When can people come and check you guys out?
42nd Street opens at Peoria Players Theater. I think everyone knows where it is, corner of University and Lake. Opens next weekend, April 24th, and will run for 2 weekends.
All right, well, Rashawn Haynes will be back with more 25 News Midday after the break. I tried to do it, but I don't think I did it any justice, did I?
No.